Hello and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. I am Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. I am the founder and the spiritual director. Now, as you are sitting there joining us, you may have questions, any number of questions, such as, who am I? How did I get here? Spiritually integrated arts means what exactly? What is a teaching center? Well, what is Centers for Spiritual Living? What is that? What does that even mean? Or New Thought, or religious science, or science of mind and spirit? You may have any number of questions about this specific community, about the parent organization, CSL, our philosophy, our teaching, our liberation theology. Any number of questions. Feel free to send an email. We look forward to connecting more and building our virtual community, our global community. And if you haven't connected yet on social media, feel free to do so. This is your invitation now. Also, did you know that all of our Sunday messages are archived on our YouTube channel? You can watch it anytime. Now, questions about anything, such as becoming a member. What does that mean? What does membership entail? And if you live somewhere far and already belong to a spiritual community, can you be a member of more than one? The simple answer is yes, you can. Just like you can shop at more than one grocery store, you can attend or be a member of more than one gym. We are building beloved community. So you can do both. You can be a member of both. You can be involved with both. That's what being in spiritual community means. So we welcome you. We invite you. We are so appreciative that you have found this community and that you have joined us today. We bless you. We love you. We welcome you. Live long and prosper. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of our Sunday message. Love you. Connect with you soon. Blessings. Namaste and greetings, and welcome to our final Sunday of the month, May 26th, the power of vision. So, this entire month, we've been talking about moving the energy and the experience from whatever it is, whether we call it bad, whether we call it so, whatever that is, to good, to great, to grand, recognizing that at the absolute, we're already good, great, and grand, glorious, gifted, all of that stuff already, but we may not be experiencing it. So, how do we get that absolute feeling to be our inner and outer experience and feeling? Well, this week we continue this discussion, but we're talking about it in terms of how do we experience this? How do we become this at the level of community, at a communal level? So there's this idea of self actualization when we embrace it from a much larger, much grander, much more open and expansive perspective, vision, perspective. It involves us creating spaces, environments where we are supported, where we are nurtured, where we are cared for, where we are loved, etc. You've probably often heard me, if you've been here for any length of time, a quote by S. Kelly Harrell, who says, "We do not heal in isolation, we heal in community. We do not move from good to great to grand in isolation, we do so in community. We do not create a world that works for all in isolation, we do so in community." How do we shift our perspective, our perception, our vision so that we are living from that awareness? And it's easy to just do lip service. It's easy to talk about the beloved community, liberation theology. It's easy to talk about these things, equity and justice. It's easy to talk about it. It's easy to have a vision, but not to act on the vision. So, how do we get to a space of, I am ready, willing, and able to commit to this course of action, to this path of evolution, to this strategy of evolutionary consciousness, so that the inner and the outer, the individual and the collective experience is that of infinite goodness, infinite greatness, and infinite grandness. Breathe. So, I don't know if you know who this is, but Tracy dated him for a while. Fred Sanford. It's one of Tracy's favorite dudes. Come on now. So, but one of the things that I'm sharing specifically this clip for is, if you've ever watched Sanford and Son for any length of time, then you know there is that moment when he goes to the drawer to pull out his eyeglasses, and he'll try one pair and it's not the right vision, and then try another pair and that's not the right vision. And he's got this drawer full, and it's humorous because in many ways we do the same thing. We have one set of glasses referencing our relationships. We have another set of glasses referencing our finances. And we are so focused on the eyeglasses versus the ocular system that uses the glasses. The glasses amplify what the eyeball, right? It's amplifying what the eyeball is seeing. Why don't we focus on the ocular system? And it's really not even the eyeball. The eyeball takes in information. It's actually the brain that interprets the vision. So it's the brain that actually sees or perceives. So our question then is, what do you see? and how do you see? Oh, say, can you see by the. Can you see? But can you perceive how not all people have equity, even under that banner? Not all are treated in an equitable and just manner under that banner, which is supposed to represent freedom, liberty, etc. What do you see and how do you see? What do you see and how do you see? What do you see? Do you see Salvador Dali's face? But it's not really his face. It's a collection of other things that your brain perceives as his face, if you know who Salvador Dali is. What do you see? You see an older woman in profile or a younger woman in three-quarters view? What do you see? How do you see? Do you see two people standing in an archway, or do you see one older man balding in profile? What do you see? How do you see? Because if we're not willing to expand our vision, then it's easy to see isolation rather than community. It's easy to get lost in the matrix of what we see versus being able to see beyond the surface, to see things that others currently cannot see. For example, referencing this thing called vision, there is a tiny little spectrum within the realm of light that we are able to perceive, receive with our eyes. The tiny little sliver that is actually visible. So we don't actually see all that there is. There's a lot more if we could see it. Our vision is limited. Now, this is referencing our actual eyesight vision. It's limited. Biologically, it's limited. But our invitation is to have vision beyond our vision. See, if we can't see beyond what we think we see or what we do see, then it really doesn't matter very much, does it? So our invitation then becomes, how do we learn and how do we practice greater methods of perceiving, seeing, beyond eyesight, developing and using insight and foresight and God's sight? How do we develop the tools, the methods, the strategies, the skills, the habit of using far more than just eyesight, of having far more than just a vision of a world that works for all, but developing the insight, the foresight, and the God sight that makes it a manifested reality? Says, what the world needs is spiritual conviction, followed by spiritual experience. Pause. You know how you've probably also often heard me reference Pierre Teilhard, I always mess up that man's name, Desjardins, who says, we are human beings. We are not simply human beings having a human experience, but we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Okay. And you've probably heard me remix it. We are spiritual beings having a spiritual experience that we call
human, but the experience is spiritual because spiritual, spirit is what we are. So, what the world needs is spiritual conviction followed by spiritual experience. Requires greater vision, greater insight, greater foresight, greater God sight. I would rather see a student of this science prove its principle than have them repeat all the words of wisdom that have ever been uttered. Lip service. It is far easier to teach the truth than it is to practice it. And practice it is what we are invited to do. To be convicted to the teaching in such a way that we live it, not just do it on Sundays or Wednesdays or Thursdays, but to practice it, live it daily. Do we have that kind of conviction? Do we have the kind of conviction that says, once you jump out the plane, you can't swim back to it? You can flap all you want. You can even make the sound, caw caw. You can do that. It's not going to get you back up into the plane. Once you step out, and I mean all the way out. I don't mean like put one foot out. You put your one foot out, you keep your other foot in. No, I'm saying when you let go and leap, you are convicted at that point. You have to follow through because gravity is now going to do what gravity does. Are we convicted to love in that way? Are we convicted to developing, manifesting, and creating the beloved community that way? There is no going back. A world that works for all? Have we made the leap to such a degree that there is no going back? There is only going forward and upward for linguistic purposes to manifest it. Are we that convicted? Or are we still holding on, holding the vision, talking about the vision, quoting people, citing scriptures, having meditations, journaling? We're still holding on though, because it's safe. Are we ready to let go? And what we say often is let go and let God. In this case, let go and let gravity. Let go and let the infinite principle of the law of mind and action demonstrate accordingly, to manifest accordingly. Are we convicted to that degree? Now, generally, the definition of conviction and some synonyms for conviction, the quality of showing that one is firmly convinced of what one believes or what one says one believes. It is a firmly held belief or opinion. That's the definition. Synonyms: assurance, this idea of certainty, confidence. Do you have that in Science of Mind and Spirit? Are you confident in the teaching? Are you confident in the evolutionary impulse of spirit? Are you confident in the power of love? Are you confident enough to change the experience individually and collectively? Practical contact with and observation of various facts and various events. The verb: to encounter or to undergo such event or an occurrence. To be involved in, to participate in, to have an awareness and familiarity with an understanding of dot, dot, dot. There's an evidence, there's a proof that we are invited to demonstrate that says, now the funny thing is, there's already evidence, there's already proof of what we are convicted of. The current experience in the United States of America, based upon what various politicians and legislatures, et cetera, are doing right now, is evidence and proof of what that mental equivalent is convicted to, convicted of, convicted by. The elimination of diversity and equity programs, there's evidence and proof what that conviction is, what that mental equivalent is. Removing women's bodily autonomy, there is evidence and there is proof of what that conviction is. So if we want a different experience, we want equity and justice for all. We want love for all. We want housing, food, medical care for all. Then what are we invited to be convicted of? What are we invited to shift in terms of the experience, in terms of the mental equivalent, in terms of the vision, in order to change what the evidence, the proof, and the outcome may be or are? What are we invited to do? Dr. Holmes says, there is an irresistible potential pressing against everyone for self-expression. Have you ever had an idea that you didn't act upon, and that idea just kept on and kept on and kept on and kept on till you wrote that song, or till you choreographed that dance, or painted that picture, or whatever it is? It was once said, there is nothing that can stop an idea whose time has come. I want to say that's Viktor Frankl. I mean, not Viktor Frankl, Victor Hugo, but I can't remember off the top of my head right this moment. But nonetheless, nothing can stop an idea whose time has come. Nothing can stop the irresistible potential that is pressing against everyone to be expressed as themselves. Now, let's get a little bit controversial. So let us sip some tea, because we get ready. We move. Woo-hoo. Ah, this irresistible potential that is pressing simply wants to express itself. How that expression is based upon our conviction and our mental equivalence. Let's think Oppenheimer. The irresistible potential that was pressing, expressed through him as a weapon of mass destruction. In his mind, that weapon would have been so terrifying that it would have stopped all war. And yet, it didn't. The irresistible potential pressing showed up as Hitler, or showed up in the things that Hitler did. See, this irresistible potential that is pressing simply is the energy of creation. But it is based upon our mental equivalent, or equivalence, our conviction, that determines, is that expression of self, is that expression of the potential life affirming or life denying? Breathe. We get to choose, but we have to really get clear What do I believe? What is my mental equivalent regarding this, that, and the other? Because if I don't know, then the creative potential that is seeking to express itself in, through, and as me is going to do so nonetheless. How do I ensure that it is done in a life affirming manner, or in the most life affirming manner possible? Not just for me individually, but for everyone collectively. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else or someone else is the greatest accomplishment. To be your authentic self in the face of conformity is truly a great accomplishment. To be your empowered, individualized expression of you in a world that would have you mimic, mirror, and modify your beauty to match what it wants, your power to match what it wants, your glory to match what it wants as a collective consciousness. To stand in your power, no matter what, is truly a great accomplishment. Now, the funny thing is, what we learn in terms of how to walk, how to talk, how to write, all of that stuff, we do so through imitation. We imitate the people closest to us. Mama, 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 mama. They said mama. They were imitating you. They were copying you. But there comes a time when, and this happens simply as a process of maturation, a process of learning and development psychologically, learning and developing personality, learning and developing physically, eye-hand coordination, all that stuff. All that stuff. It's a part of our biology. But then there comes a time when we can choose who and how to imitate, who and how we're going to emulate something or someone else. And some people make an entire career of emulating and imitating others. An Elvis impersonator. They are impersonating, they are imitating, they are taking on the characters, qualities, attributes, behaviors, speech patterns, etc., of another individual. And there are some who get lost in the imitation. We do the same thing even when it's not. We can get lost in imitating, competing, trying to be like someone else, rather than how do I express my own divine individuality? Even if I'm going to do this as a job, even if I'm going to be, I'm at a loss for words. I'm trying to think of who would I want to emulate? Who do I want to imitate? Excuse me. Whoever. Even if we're going to do this as a career, as a profession, we know how and when to take the mask off to be our authentic selves, to be our truest expression of self without getting lost in the masks and the makeup. So ask yourself, is there someone that you are so wanting their approval that you are not being your authentic self? Is there somewhere you are simply trying to fit in? So you change your behavior, you change who you are to fit in rather than belong. Audre Lorde reminds us, when I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid. What is your vision for your own life? What is the vision you hold for your own life? In terms of a vision, world that works for all, what does it mean to use your strength in service of that vision? What does it mean to dare to be powerful in service of that vision? Because when, according to her, when we dare, when we have the divine audacity to be powerful, to use our strength in service of the vision, the fear, the trepidation matters far less than the manifestation of. Love the Lord God as you love yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love the Lord as you love the Lord God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength, with all your might. Love humanity with all your mind, all your strength, all your heart. Love your vision, a world that works for all, with all of your heart, with all of your mind, with all of your strength. Then what happens? What starts to shift? Something has to shift. When that is the energy that we are living from, something has to shift. When we show up in our authentic power, our divine magnificence, our divine audacity, something shifts within us. And see, the funny thing is, going back to the idea of emulation and imitation, when we emulate those who have demonstrated such power, whether they are actual living people, such as Coretta Scott King, Mamie Till Mobley, whether they actually have lived and demonstrated the expression of power, their divine audacity, or if they are fictional characters, fictional archetypes of that power, that divine audacity, such as when Angela Bassett played Queen Ramonda in the Black Panther, in case you didn't know. When Gal Gadot donned Wonder Woman. See, it doesn't matter if the examples lived and breathed as actual human beings or lived and breathed as mythical archetypes. Doesn't matter. The power that is demonstrated, because the power is the divine, then that power shows up in myth and reality. Because there is nothing about mythology that says mythology is a lie. Mythology is simply a symbolic way of transporting truth. It is the vehicle by which we use to present truth. Think Aesop's fables. They're true. The power, the lesson is true, even though this animal didn't actually have that conversation. Like, so it doesn't matter. How are you invited to find that space to express your power? Is there someone that you can look to emulate? How did they do it? How did Bayard Rustin do it? How did Malcolm X do it? How did Stan Lee do it? Doesn't matter. Gene Roddenberry. Doesn't matter. You have the same thing. It's in a different form. It's maybe expressed in a different way, but nonetheless, the power that is there, the truth that is there, the divinity that is there, the divine audacity that is there is everywhere. There is an irresistible urge pushing to express itself in everyone. How is that happening in you, through you, and as you? Let your vision be world embracing rather than confined to your own self. In other words, rather than thinking of your own individual, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, I got to do it for me. How do I turn the me into we? I may have more than enough food, but if my neighbor is hungry and I don't share, what kind of neighbor, what kind of loving expression of God am I if I don't share, if I don't care? This is a call to action for the 21st century New Thought Good Samaritan. Your vision should not be just for your highest and best, but your highest and best and the highest and best for all. Now, as we said several slides back, the idea is how do we create spaces? How do we create the environment where this is by default what's occurring? Now, there's a video by Jason Silva that I highly recommend you watch if you've never seen it before, where he talks about the idea that first we create the environment and then the environment creates us. What? In other words, you create this space for whatever the space is. And by the nature of the energy of the space itself now impacts you. There is a reciprocity of our environments shape us right back. So walk through your house and or your apartment and pause and check in. What do I feel in this space? Do I feel heavy and then is it time to declutter? Is it time to smudge? Is it time to reiki the room? What is it time to do something differently so the energy in the space changes? So when you enter the space, you are changed by the space. Is it time? What about the space, the environment between you and those you love? The environment that's not necessarily a specific location, but the environment that occurs between you and them. Because you create an environment simply through a conversation. You are creating a container in which the person you are speaking with knows if you are with them or not. You're sitting right across from them. But if they know you're not with them, and you may be looking right at them. but they know you're not with them. You're somewhere else, even while you are present. So, how do we create the environment even in our conversations and our interactions? And let that environment that's created then impact us right back. And one way we create that environment is by asking the question, as Stephanie Dillon invites us, how do I treat others? The way that I treat others is the way that I create this environment. How do I treat others? Do I practice things, whatever it is that I'm doing? Do I practice things that are in alignment with my values? Are my practices in alignment with my values? Beyond a shadow of a doubt. But the question is really, are my practices aligned with what I claim that my values are? The practices are going, if there is a value that I value appearance, I value the appearance of being holy rather than valuing holiness itself. My practices are going to be aligned with keeping up appearances. On the surface, I'm meditating, I'm praying, I'm doing the stuff. Woo! But because this is what I'm actually, now I claim something else, but because this is what I'm actually valuing, the practice is going to be aligned with that. So once again, do my practices align with what I say, what I actually desire to value? How am I holding myself and others accountable in a loving, compassionate way? And she says the main question is, who am I when I'm alone? Who am I when no one is around to see me? Who am I when no one is looking? Someone once said, character is what you are if no one ever found out what you were doing. That is what character integrity actually mean. I don't do this to put on a show. I do this because it's who I am, whether people are around or not. This is who I am. This is what I do. Who are you when no one is watching? By studying, practicing, and living the science of mind and spirit, we not only have the vision of a world that works for all, I could have put this in there. We not only have the vision of a world that works for all, but because of our conviction, the vision has us. And because it has us, we actively create a world that works for all. And we do it in all of our relationships, in all of our interactions with so-called strangers, as well as all of our interactions with those individuals we really do not like very much. But nonetheless, we create spaces that are imbued with the energy of unconditional love, with compassion, with equity, with justice, harmony. In other words, God. Our way of being becomes the alchemical catalyst of transformation, forgiveness, reconciliation, healing, and cooperative collaborations of oneness. Breathe. This week's affirmation declaration, I will say it first, and if it resonates with you, Just noticed a glitch. I hope that's not a technical difficulty with when you watch this. What is going on? Our affirmation and declaration this week is I create spaces. Well, first, I will say it. If it resonates with you, say it with me on the second go round. I create spaces for authentic and vulnerable self expression for both myself and for others. Together. I create spaces for authentic and vulnerable self expression for both myself and for others. Breathe. So it is. This week's questions for the study group or for your own journaling practice. How do I perceive the world and the various things in it? Now, you notice perceive is highlighted. How do I use insight, foresight, God sight in my perception of the world and the various things in it? Not just eyesight, but how do I see beyond what I see? For example, what is my perception of money, education, politics, the unhoused, etc.? Number two, how do my perceptions of myself and my perceptions of others, how does it impact my relationships with myself and with others? Number three, how do my daily practices and actions align with my values and my perceptions? Number four, what does my physical space communicate about my values? Now, got tidy up. What does my physical space communicate about my values and about my perceptions? And how does that space impact me? And lastly, how can I create safer? I'll go with safer. How do I create safer and braver spaces for authentic expression and the self actualization of myself and others? Breathe. So we anchor into this energy of the divine, which is ever present in every breath. It is the space between the sounds that create words. It is the vibration of the words themselves. It is the heart that is beating. It is the air that is moving. It is the sky. It is the grass. It is all that there is. And because it is all there is, it is right here, right now, in, through, and as each and every one. That means this thing called God sight is right here where we are. Now, the question I ask is, am I using that God sight? Because that is my invitation. So as I speak this now, I avail myself to that level of vision. As Dr. Holmes says, don't simply have faith in God, have the faith of God. Don't simply have a perception of God, but have the perception. Don't simply have the perception, in God, but have the perception of God. See the world and see events and see people the way God sees itself, as, in, through, all. Breathe. So I anchor into this knowing that my perception right now is the perception that God has. Right now, I anchor and ground knowing that my faith is the faith that God has. Right here and right now, I anchor knowing that the vision I have is the vision that God has. That irresistible, ever pressing, ever expressing divine evolutionary impulse. And what it is, I am. What it is, we are. What it is, is. So I breathe, and I can see clearly now. I breathe. I can breathe easier now. I can express easier, more powerfully now. I walk the walk more audaciously and boldly now. And I boldly go where I have never gone before in my relationships, in my finances, in my way of walking gently yet powerfully and truthfully in this life. There is only one life, and that life is the life of the divine, and that life is my life now. So, with gratitude and joy, I stand back and marvel at the magnificent way that the law receives this word, receives this conviction, receives this intentionality, receives this that I offer unto it. It receives, it has to. It receives and it acts accordingly. It has to. And that is its amen. Because the law recognizes that what I am, what I be, what I do is my prayer. Which means it's already done. It's already manifesting. It's already showing up. And right now I claim the power to see that and to live it. So it is. And so it is. Whew. It's almost June, peoples. It's almost June. Namaste, blessings, much love and appreciation, and I will see you all very soon. It's almost June.